Hi, welcome back to the shed for episode 12 of the TV Yellow Les Paul Junior build. And in this episode, we're going to be tackling the somewhat tricky task of getting the bridge fitted. Okay, so the neck's been glued in a few days. It's good and solid now. There's a little bit of cleaning up work to do on it, but I'm really pleased with the way it's gone. It's a nice joint and everything's where it should be. So the next stage is we need to fit the bridge. And to fit the bridge effectively, we need to find out A, where it needs to go in terms of scale length, which is fairly straightforward to do, and B, we need to make sure that it's both central to the neck so that the strings are spaced nice and evenly, and it needs to be at a very slight angle just to kind of help us with the intonation a little bit. So the first part of that is we need to measure the scale length. And this is 24 3/4, which we measure from the nut. And as you can see, I've already put that line in at 23 3/4 inches. The check you can do on that is if you measure to the 12th fret, which is about 315 mil. So we should be 630, which we absolutely are. So that's exactly where we need it to go. In terms of getting this central, the way I do it is I like to run some string, or maybe some old guitar strings if I can find some, from the bridge up to the two E tuners, and then we can kind of position this bridge where it needs to go laterally by judging how far away and how central it's sitting on the frets. And to do that, we need to fit a couple of tuners. And I'm thinking, if I'm going to be fitting a couple of tuners, I might as well just fit all the tuners and be done with it. So that'll be the next job. Now, unlike most Les Paul Juniors that have 3 on a strip tuners, I've actually gone for these kind of vintage style Kluson type tuners. A, because I like them, and I think they're a nice look with the kind of snot green buttons on there. They're probably a little bit too green, maybe, I don't know. We'll have to see how they look against the yellow of the body, but I don't know, we'll see. And the second reason is I bought 3 on a strip tuners for the last Les Paul Junior build I did, and I wasn't particularly impressed with them, and one of them broke almost immediately, so I'm very reluctant to go down that path again. So I'll get everything cleared away and we can get these tuners sorted out and fastened in place. And I thought for a horrible moment there that I'd actually drilled the holes a little bit too close together, but they're absolutely spot on. So yeah, happy with that. And the way I do these is I just eyeball them so that the actual bar of the tuner, they're all kind of parallel to each other. And I think it's one of those jobs where if it looks right, it probably is right. And then I simply got a 1.5mm drill bit with a little tape flag on it, just so I don't go too far, because we don't want to drill through the headstock. However, having said that, this headstock will be painted, so it won't be an absolute disaster, but we don't want to be messing around if we don't need to. And then I've just put a little bit of wax onto that screw just to help it go in. And we can bosh it in. And then it's just a matter of repeating that on all 6 tuners. I'm going to do it off camera because there's really nothing to see here, and I'll join you back when it's done. And I can't emphasize enough the importance of a good pilot hole. So these screws are about 2mm, so I'm putting a 1.5mm pilot hole in, and I'm putting plenty of wax on the threads because the screws are only 2mm and they're generally made of cheese. So good pilot hole, a little bit of wax, and don't crank on them. They don't have to be excessively tight, they just need to hold stuff in place. If you try and over tighten them, you're probably going to break them, and they can be an absolute pig to get out. So yeah, just take it nice and easy. Okay, so I've moved on a little bit and I've got this set up with the 2 bits of string that I mentioned earlier, and I've just got it set so that when I pull it back towards that line that I've put in here to mark my scale length, it's actually quite tight. And what I'm going to do is just kind of position this so these 2 bits of string are sat central. So I've got a very similar amount of overhang on the fret on both sides. And from there, I'm just going to put a suitably sized transfer punch right onto that mark and give it a tap. Which is there, which marks the center point for the first of our studs. Just there. So I'm going to take that to the drill press. We'll get that drilled out, and from there we can then use that as a reference point, because we actually need to angle this bridge back just to make sure that the intonation is going to work properly. I can achieve that a lot easier if I've got this first post in place. And now the next thing we need to do is we need to measure back from that line, and the drawing's saying it needs to be about 11mm. It is quite an angle on these. However, on the other 2 guitars I've done, it's a very similar setup and they intonate absolutely fine. That's not a problem. We'll just mark a line there, perpendicular to the center line. Fit that in position. Just give that a tap with the transfer punch, and theoretically that is where the other bridge stud needs to go. So we'll just do exactly the same on the drill press. So I don't think there's really any need to film that, and we can come back and get this fitted. Okay, I had the camera set up, so I filmed it anyway. Now, I always like to just counterbore these holes to the size of this flange on the insert, just so I can knock those down kind of dead flush with the top of the guitar. Because you never know, that extra kind of 2mm of downward adjustment might just be the difference between a playable action and a not playable action. And just by way of experimentation, yeah, we only have to kind of adjust those screws up a little way, and we've got ourselves a playable action there. Obviously string tension and truss rod adjustment will also influence that, but as a kind of a ballpark reference, we know we're in the right place, which is absolutely amazing. So next up, we need to do a little bit of kind of mocking up just to see where the rest of things go. And I kind of think that looks about right for the pickup placement. Leaves a little bit of a gap between the bridge and the pickup, but also it's not crammed against where the pick guard's going to go. So I'm happy to go with that setup. So I'm just going to kind of mark these screw holes to kind of establish roughly where my center line is. We can get everything off the top of the guitar. Kind of mark that line in properly where we want the center of the pickup to be, and we can get our template over and start to get this laid out. And as you can see, that's fairly straightforward to line up. Just make sure the center lines are aligned, and that line where I want the pickup to go is also aligned. You can probably see that this isn't kind of aligning perfectly with the body, but I'd much rather have the pickup in the location that I prefer than stick to something that kind of fits my template perfectly. So I've just roughly marked that. I'm going to put the stuff back on just to make sure that that still looks okay, which I think it does. So I will now set this up, super glue and masking tape the template on. You've seen that, I won't bore you with it. And then we can get routing. Now I'm not going to hog this material out of here first. I'm just going to go straight with the router. We only have to go down kind of 10, 15 mil with these. And Dog Ear P90 is actually quite a low profile pickup in terms of the route, so there's no need to kind of go too mad with it. Right, get this set up and join you back in a minute. I think that's spot on. Really happy with that. The route is nice and clean, which is what we want. So we've got one last little job to do before we can wrap this one up. Let's get this master template back onto the guitar and mark where my cavity should be. We just need to drill a hole now through into there. I'm going to try and get it in through there. That just gives me the shortest route, and hopefully I should be able to get a channel through there without too much bother and miss that stud. Of course I'm going to have to take this stud out at some point and drill a channel through for the ground wire, but that's not something we have to worry about now. So I'll go and get the drill and we'll see if we can get this drilled in without causing any further problems. And this is one of those moments, isn't it? Has it gone through into the control cavity? Or has it gone straight through the back of the bloody guitar? Don't know how well you can see that. I'll bring you in for a closer shot, but it has actually gone straight into the top of the control cavity. So it's another somewhat risky operation successfully completed. Happy days. So while that might only be a couple of little jobs we've done in this episode, it's actually moved this build quite a long way towards completion, which is absolutely amazing. It's a couple of things that could have gone horribly wrong that thankfully haven't, and it's a few less things for me to worry about. So next up, we've got a few little bits and pieces jobs that need to be doing. We need a pick guard, we need to turn the soap bar pickup that we've got into a dog ear pickup, and we need to fit loads of little bits and pieces to this. However, that's going to be for next time. I'm going to leave this episode here. So as always, like if you've liked, subscribe if you haven't already done so, and I'll look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks a lot for watching. Bye bye.